Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Wall. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. Little under the weather, as I believe you are, and our guest as well today. So we are going to battle through. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to today. I've got a big event, and I'm seeing a friend of mine this afternoon that's been in America for about 12 years. Good friend growing up. So yeah, we're going to watch a bit of football this evening. So I'm looking forward to today. Even though I feel a bit under the weather, I'm actually really excited. Got a good estate agency event, and then seeing a mate that I've not seen for like 12 years as well tonight. So yeah, good day lined up.
Good. Excellent.
How are you?
Yeah, I've been better. I've not been to the gym this morning. I had 11 hours sleep last night because I feel like crap. My nose, if you're watching this on video or seeing this, you'll see my nose is really red because I can't stop blowing it. So just that horrible bug time of year we are in it, and I feel like it's hit me fairly hard. I suppose listeners will probably say bit of man flu, man up. But I missed the gym this morning, which is a bit irritating. But we are here and battling through, and we won't be too negative about that because we're recording the intro after the interview today. But we've got a really good guest to come today, and there's loads of there's some, what I quite liked about the interview, there's some high level stuff, but there's some really little practical stuff. So I think the episode is going to be a really good one today, and at a very good time of year, as we are. I don't know about you, I imagine you're exactly the same as our business. We're in planning mode now, looking for next year, trying to spin the plate of make sure that we hit the targets for this year because we're at that pivotal point. But we're also starting to look ahead, starting to make the plans and get excited about what next year might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's business planning mode, and just last week I was kind of jotting down some of the numbers for the marketing investment for next year. So I think this guest is a perfect time for someone with a hell of a lot of experience, way more experience than myself or you in the world of marketing, and I would imagine 99.9% or if not 100% of the listeners. So it's always great to kind of get advice from people that have got that experience and expertise in a variety of different industries. I think not just agency, but with an undertone of agency. So yeah, the business planning side of it is definitely going to be one of the questions I think people will take a lot away from. So Simon Leadbetter is coming on to the show. His business is We Are Unchained. His company is Unchained. He does a lot of training. I personally went on his 30 years of marketing in a day course. I found it thick, fast and high value. And what I often find with a lot of training courses are the opposite of that. Actually, it's sort of one key message or a couple of key messages that spanned over the course of a day. And I get a bit bored in some of them. But in Simon's one, it was thick, it was fast, there was lots of practical value. Some stuff I took away, some stuff I didn't because it went over my head a little bit or it wasn't relevant to me. But loads of really good practicals that came from it. And hopefully on this particular episode, we won't get 30 years of marketing across from him, but we are going to get a couple of key questions around business planning and his top tips as well. And I'm very interested to hear what people's feedback is around the key question as well that you obviously ask him, which is, what does world-class real estate look like to you? So yeah, Simon, shall we get him on, Mark?
Let's dive in. Simon, a massive thank you for joining us once again. I'm going to kick off as we kick off every show with our favourite question. And it's, what does world-class real estate look like to you in 2024?
It's a great question. And actually, I think it's probably 3 years. It's 3 years, isn't it, since we asked this question before? So
yeah, it probably is.
Yeah. I think the future belongs to the ones who have brands. And I think we're kind of, as an industry, we seem to forget that. We're very, very obsessed with sale. But in marketing, we talk about brand awareness and sales activation, the two types of marketing. And we naturally, because we're salespeople and we want to generate income, we go for the sales stuff. And we're always selling, as the character in Glengarry Glen Ross would say, always be closing, ABC.
Yeah. ABC.
And we kind of forget that one of the reasons why people choose to work with people because they know they like and they trust them, and they'll make that decision a long time before they pick up the phone. So you can sell as much as you like. But in reality, there's a great quote from Peter Drucker, the great management consultant, is the art of marketing is to make selling superfluous or unnecessary. And I think there's another great article in Future magazine, Fortune magazine, that talked about the 21st century will belong to the people who own brands. Because if you think about tech, if you think about tactics, we can all copy each other. But the one unique thing you'll have is your brand. Because, well, people could copy it, but then you can sue them. Yep. Because it's legally yours. So as an industry, and I talk about it all the time, is the brands, the businesses who are successful are the ones who have brands. And hey, if you've got a really funky brand, like someone on this podcast, that's going to help you. But you've really got to invest in your brand, and that's the future. I hope we do it more.
Do you think with that as well, Simon, that the way of the world these days, and I see the likes of like Prime Energy drink and some of the whiskey sales that people like Conor McGregor has done, and then I look at how Wrexham Football Club and Mint and what Ryan Reynolds has done with his brands and businesses. Do you think there is a significant power in creating a personal brand as well as the business brand?
I think if Ryan Reynolds launched an estate agency, he'd clean up.
Yeah.
On an epic scale. I think it's the genius of and the tyranny of all. If you happen to be an employee, then you have an advantage because people will probably know the company brand before they know you. In amongst that, when I did the Voice of the Agent this year, the average number of estate agents or lettings agents people can recall is 3. So there might be 10, 12, 20 on a high street, but people can think of about 3. And if you test them, it's probably the same 3. So it kind of gives you an advantage if you have a company brand. If you don't have that, or you work in a company, then you've still got to build your personal brand. You need to build it if you're an individual because people buy people. But if you're in a company, people buy people. So it's like, what's that quote is? Capitalism is the exploitation of man by man. Communism is the other way around. And it's like, we kind of need personal brands because people buy people. So yes, 100% invest in your personal brand. If you're company man, company woman, you have an advantage. So you might need to do it a little bit less because you're being helped out by the company. If you're an individual, it's all you've got. So the answer is, yes, you definitely need to invest in your personal brand. You need to be on social media. You need to be out on podcasts. You need to be known. You need to be talking at local webinars or local meetings. People need to know that you're the person they can go to. When it comes to that moment every 7 to 13 years, they want to buy or sell a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can I ask some really practical examples then? If you've got somebody who's in a employed role in a big corporate, the corporate does the brand bit, they've never thought about needing to do the personal brand bit. What sort of advice can you give them as to how they could start quite easily?
So let's start with that incredibly small sector of our market, social media. It's kind of like, if people aren't doing it, they're missing a trick. A personal post has like 563% more engagement than a company post. So if you're kind of thinking about social media and you haven't done it before, then be what I call a curator as opposed to a creator. So there's that classic stack. 1% of people create content on social media, 9% kind of follow, like, and engage, and 90% lurk. They're just there and they're just passively consuming. So you want to be one of the 1%. If you struggle with that, then curate others' content. Your company will be creating content. So after a day or two, share that content with a comment and ask what other people think. So if there's a great article in the Daily Mail, the FT, Property Industry Eye, Estate Agent Today, take that content, what someone else has invested time and money to create, share it after a couple of days, because if you share it too early, you kind of damage the algorithm for them. But a couple of days, share it with your comment, add a question. Once you become comfortable, you should absolutely start creating content. And, I teach this on 30 years. I've taught this on best practices. Just work out what the 12 questions that you get asked most often and write the answer. Then write another answer. That gives you 24 bits of content very quickly. And, you know, in the world of AI, if you find a post that is successful, get AI to respin it, to take the same content and reword it in a different way. A bit on that, because people are in two minds about AI. I'm a huge advocate, although I recognize its limitations. One of the best things you can do to create content with AI is put some of your writing in ChatGPT or Gemini or one of the others and ask it to analyze your writing style. Then ask it to write posts in your writing style in British English. And it very quickly, you actually, I mean, I have something called the Cybot, which is such a nerd, which is a ChatGPT version. It's like a bot of my own that's read my writing style. So I use that on ChatGPT to create some content. Never publish direct because ChatGPT and others make stuff up, correct it. But start with that first one, which is curate others' content and start with the simplest creation you can do, which is address people's problems. And then just keep repurposing that. And probably about a third of your content can be more personal. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a post I saw from Ian earlier, which is about, you know, with his kids. You know, in this post-COVID world, people like us to be more human. And I think you can absolutely, about a third, 2/3, social, personal, professional on LinkedIn, the other way round on Facebook, more personal, less professional. People by people they like, know, and trust. So convey some of your humanity back to your personal brand point.
Yeah, I think values are important to share with people, because if you're constantly just putting out business-led marketing, or for us, property-led marketing, you're just the property thing person, you know. But when I like to have sort of a 10%, maybe if I'm posting 20 days of the month on LinkedIn as an example, 2 of those might be a little bit more towards my personal values rather than just my business or professional values. And sometimes when I'm talking to the avocado agents, we talk about the 3 E's. So we have experience, which is like the reality TV of what you're doing, a bit like what you said with the 12 questions or the diary that you've got today, and sharing what you're actually doing live and on the hop effectively. Then we have education. So sharing education with people, showing that we're an authority on the market. And then we have entertainment, and that's like a 10% sliver. It could be a blooper reel or something funny happened on an appointment. And if you just kind of follow those 3 E's in a kind of 40, 50, 10, it seems to kind of be a nice kind of measure for people that are unused to it. I wanted to, sorry, Simon, I was going to just say, I wanted to dive in because on the website, We Are Unchained, and I've been on the 30 days, 30 years marketing in a day. Sorry, it's really good. And
best student.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was late. I do apologise. But one of the quotes on the website is, stop wondering why your marketing ROI isn't where you want it to be. And I think this is something which, especially in agency, is an important topic to cover, because we're now at the end of the year. We've got 2025 around the corner. I think people do want to capitalise on a normal market, which means good agents become really good. Weak agents will struggle. My favourite type of market, if I'm honest. And ROI is a big thing, because I say estate agents are magpies. There's so much prop tech, marketing, opportunity, features on Rightmove, features on Zoopla, CRMs out there, opportunities to go and do X, Y, and Z, copy the neighbour, copy the competition. But often people don't really get down into what's the best. You can't do it all. So what's the best? So in your level of expertise, I'd just be keen where you would point potentially a couple of people that are thinking about making their marketing plan in November, and what would be your kind of top 2 or 3 tips to give them as a sort of marketing expert in this field?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people I talk to in marketing don't talk about ROI, and the very definition of marketing says we do it for a profit. So it's an investment. If you're doing marketing without knowing what you're getting in return, you're not doing marketing, you're gambling, and you're speculating and throwing stuff against the wall. I mean, at a very high level, there is kind of like 2 measures that you want to have a look at, which are really kind of useful to understand how you're doing overall, and then we get into the granular. The first one is look at your customer acquisition cost, your horrible acronym CAC, customer acquisition cost. How much have you spent on marketing and how many new customers have you got? In an ideal world, you're tracking it regularly, like every quarter, every month, every week, but every year is fine if you haven't done it before. Simply, it's a very simple maths. How much have I spent on marketing and how many new customers I've got? And if you can break it down by period, so first half of the year, second half of the year, quarter of the year, you'll get a sense of, is what you're doing getting better or worse? In an ideal world, if you're optimizing, your customer acquisition cost should be coming down. So you're spending less per new customer.
And would you clarify that as exchange business, listed business, new leads in the database? Which would you sort of classify as the customer?
I think you can use all, as in you can decide what matters to you. It depends what your conversion rates with the funnel. I mean, as a marketer, generally we would class the role to have stopped upon instruction, because at that point it's down very much to human intervention. And marketing, apart from providing collateral, can't really do anything at that point because we're into the vagaries of the market and the wonderful world of individual buyers. But once you've done the maths, you could go, what is my cost per listing, cost per instruction, cost per conversion, cost per sale? Every stage you could have a look at. And if you're just tracking that once a quarter and you've tried new methodologies or you've adopted old methodologies, if it's getting better, you're doing more of the right thing. To get to the next level, and there's a huge amount of science about what we call attribution, and there's now in the AI world, it's been incredibly powerful. But I'm a marketer, I'm a technophile, I love technology. My two measures are the basic ones: customer acquisition cost, and the second one is CPA, cost per acquisition, which is at a campaign level. So if I do something, I spend money in a campaign, not over a time period, but I specifically do a campaign, how many conversions did I get? Now, those conversions could be, again, instructions in this industry. So, and that would just kind of go, okay, so I did that campaign and I got, of £1,000, 5 conversions. Right. £200. That's my cost per conversion, cost per acquisition. And that customer acquisition cost, which is a holistic view, and cost per acquisition or cost per campaign, gives you kind of two ways of looking at how your business is improving. But there is a golden rule, and it's the 4 horsemen of the marketing apocalypse, which is do PR. If you're not doing PR, you're shooting your business in the foot, because it has the highest ROI of any activity you can do, because you're borrowing other people's credibility. Email. You've got someone's permission to market to them. Are you using their email in the best possible way? Sending interesting newsletters, sending facts, sending information, just giving lots of value to people who already opt into receiving your message. Social media. Be on 3 or 4. Don't be on 1, be on 3 or 4. Things like Hootsuite and HubSpot and Zoho Social can really help you manage multiple social media accounts, but you kind of want to be on 3 or 4, and it's called social, not media. So you've got to engage. You've got to get into conversation. You've got to like, you've got to comment. You've got to be a good social media citizen and contribute to other people's stuff as well as doing your own. If you're just selling, you're not being social. It's like going to a bar and someone says, let me talk about me for the next hour. It's like you'd walk away very quickly. And then, Ian, we can talk about it at some point. We had a good old little debate last week about leafleting and direct mail. Direct mail. It's still incredibly powerful. And I'm talking about direct mail maybe more than leafleting. Although my view is you're not, okay, this sounds really simplistic and probably not right. You don't care who lives in the house. You want to sell the house. So on the basis that you know where that house is, and that house is what we call a non-moving consumer good, the house is where it was yesterday, is where it will be to get tomorrow. You can sell that house by putting a little something through its letterbox. The classic I have is I sold a house for a dead person. So we used to send a magazine at a company I worked with, and sent a magazine to the most expensive houses in the area. We got a phone call one month from a person who was the son of the person who lived in that house. They got the magazine when they were checking their father's estate, presumed their father liked our brand, and as a result instructed us to actually sell their house. it was a £4 million house on a 2.5% fee, and the person who we sold it for had sadly passed away. So no social media would have ever reached that person because they no longer exist. And hey, I'm a technophile. I love social. I'm hashtag Leadbetter. I love social media. I love the digital. I'm a complete technophile. But what I call top floor marketing, the CMO suite, the C-suite, is channel agnostic. It's all about data. And those 4 things really work. PR, email, social, direct. PR and social are very good for brand. Email, social, and direct are very good for sales. And those 4 together will just massively change. If you just do one of those things, do 4. 2 of those things, do 4. 3 of things, do 4. Always do the 4. And you'll be surprised at how business just takes off.
It's the omnipresence of the multi-channel stuff, the illusion you are everywhere, as I like to describe it. My post that we debated was specifically about leaflets rather than direct mail. But it's an interesting point, because this is where opinions are great, because what you mentioned about you want to sell the house, I guess that's where for me with avocado, we don't want to sell the house. We want to help the client move. That's the message that we're trying to work around, is we want to work with a certain type of person. We want to help families move. So because we don't need to do the whole of market share, we're not targeting properties. We are targeting people. And I would have been confident if the dead person's son was right for our brand, they would have found us on social media and he would have instructed us. And if he wasn't, then we wouldn't, because actually it's the estate that instructs the listing, not the dead person. That's just my view. I'm about people, not about property, but that's a different game to the masses in estate agency.
And we violently aggressively agree. It's all about people. It's all about the people. And, fundamentally as a marketer, you start with, what's that first part of the word marketing? Market. You start with the market and really understanding who it is. Now, who is more important when you get a house and you want to maintain your brand? The buyer or the seller?
Who is more important to the business?
Yeah, in terms of maintaining the brand.
Well, both, but arguably, I think the seller is going to view you potentially more critically. If something goes wrong in the buyer, you're probably going to get the blame.
Absolutely. Technically, you're absolutely right. Talk about all sales training in the industry, you're absolutely right. But if you look at geodemographics, and this is the point that Ian was making actually, in terms of who the brand is, what we find in human nature is we herd. We cluster together. We live with people who are like us. And that means that cul-de-sacs, closes, streets, communities, hamlets, parts of towns, parts of cities, blah, 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 you will find generally a certain level of affluence, lifestyle stage, and attitude congregates together. We do herd, and it's surprisingly how accurate postcodes are for determining the type of person that lives in a house. So in reality, if you've decided the kind of person that you want to sell to, I could within half an hour tell you exactly the kind of houses they live in. And that means I could, by proxy, without knowing the individuals who live in the house, target that house and put a letter through its door. And while the person in that house might not fit the profile, because I've lived in areas where we are basically the weird ones on the street, everyone else is the same, and we're like, why are you living here? You're nothing like the rest of us. The person who will buy that house is most likely to be like the rest of the people on that street, because that's how we behave as human beings. We're herd animals, and we like to be amongst our like. So 100%, you start with understanding the customer. But as I say to loads of people, if you don't know who the customer is, the postcode tells you a hell of a lot about who's in the house. Or, critically, who will buy that house, and therefore would be a good mirror image of your brand.
There's a short
genius around tyranny of all. It's not one or the other, it's both.
There's a bit of a short-term and a long-term strategy in that conversation as well, isn't there? Because you want to nurture the seller, you want to get to completion because you want to get paid for the work that you've done for the last few months. But at the same time, with the buyer, the intel tells you a lot, like you just said, about the street, the road, the herding mentality. And also, if you, obviously, work very well with the buyer, they're probably going to recommend you to others, and then you're going to get the uncontested business that we spoke about in the first 5 minutes. But also you potentially looking at that person moving in 6, 7, 8 years time as well, and it will impact the business in that way too.
Absolutely. And part of the expertise of an agent, as opposed to just putting it on a portal and praying, is you can advise them on the kind of person who will buy that house. Whoever you are who lives in that house, that son of that wealthy person, the person who's going to buy the house will be another wealthy person who was a similar generation to the father than the mother, not of the son. So in reality, part of the expertise is kind of going, look, we understand these kind of houses so well, and this is our area of expertise. We have an exact profile of who's going to buy this property. So we can go and reach them in our database, we can reach them in our marketing. And to be honest with you, you would never say this, but I say this in boardrooms and in company meetings. You're not the customer, Mr. Seller. The customer ultimately is the one who's buying the product. And therefore, my client is the seller. My customer is the buyer. That's who I need to attract.
I always say to people, and it happens, it's exactly what you said, that herd mentality. The people that buy a house are probably like, talking to the seller, probably like you when you bought it. So that's the power of finding out why they bought it. And that's the people part of this process, is finding out why they bought it, what attracted them to it, and then basically relaying that to the person that's going to eventually buy it.
Power of an agent. I am not an agent. I'm not an estate agent. I have nothing but respect for them because I've seen the best of what they do. It's sort of like witchcraft. It's the way they engage in the conversation, and they really understand a seller's journey. And exactly that point, when you bought the house 13 years ago, you were upsizing because you had a child, you wanted to be near a school, and now you're at a point where you're possibly downsizing or resizing because your children have gone to university or college or left home, whatever. So that narrative is really important. So our buyer, because we're in the team now together, is not who you are now. It's exactly as you say, Mark, who you were then. Because that house is perfect for that kind of person. So again, when you see it, it's why 95% of the industry is SH1T. They just put stuff on portals and pray. That's probably harsh. 94%. And then you get this elite group that rises above the rest. They're all about relationships, not transactions, about conversation, not selling. Importantly, so that, I work with a client in a B2B environment, and we talk about consultation, not selling. We work together, we collaborate, and we're on a team to get the best possible outcome. I'm not just trying to get the fastest sale, I'm trying to get the best sale for you. And that's by really understanding who your target market is, not who you are now or what the next chapter in your life is. And I can help you with that too, because I understand that too. But for this property, this market, this audience, I will find them for you. I will hunt them down for you because I know where they live.
And I think doing the marketing plan that you said there, dovetailing with building the brand, then for the agent, this is really important about getting the best sale. Because if you can get the best listing with the best seller, with the best price, then the conversions of where you go to get paid, that's where you really make a sweet spot difference. If you've got 10 average listings, and the national average at the moment, according to 20EA data, is that 49% of properties that come to the market sell, go under offer. 49%. No, we're not even at 50% this year. So out of those 10, you're going to see, if you're lucky, 5 of them go to sale agreed. And then we've got 29% of the sale agreeds bomb out. So when you actually look at the metrics, to get the best sale is the most sensible piece of marketing planning that you can do, like you said there, because otherwise you're just wasting everything.
And, again, understanding humans' herd nature is, if you want to get more customers, you basically want to get a champion property that represents whom you want to be. By hook or by crook, get a few of them, ideally within near proximity of each other. Because once you become known as the person who does that kind of property and does it successfully, people will come to you. It's back to that quote. I wrote an article last week on LinkedIn, which is, if you're selling, you're not doing enough marketing. Do you know how much money I've invested in selling Wheel and Chain?
No idea.
Absolutely diddly squat. I have never, ever sold Wheel and Chain. I've done tons of LinkedIn. I've done tons of events. I talk about what I do all the time. I'm prolific on LinkedIn. All my clients, and they're all fantastic, and I love every single one, have approached me. They've either been recommendations or they've approached me directly. I can only work with a handful of people at any one point, so I can afford almost to be choosy, but I don't have a flood of people. I don't have a massive flood of people contacting me. I don't want a massive group of people contacting me for what I do. I want the people who know me, like me, trust me, like what I say, to work me, because we're already shorthanded. They're getting to know each other a bit because they've seen me on podcasts and on social media and at events. But because we know, like, and trust each other, it's a genuine partnership. So I say, we're not an agency, we're not a consultancy. We're your C-suite marketing member of your team for a fraction of the price. So we're now completely in partnership, and now we work together to do marketing. Selling, don't sell. I don't need to sell. And I think the right agents can achieve that status, and some do, and I see them. Literally, there is competition of zero. Is it uncontested instructions, you say?
Uncontested business, yeah.
Uncontested business. Be in the space of uncontested business. That's what, if you're doing your marketing right, you will have no competition.
And it goes back to consultancy. A valuation shouldn't be a sales pitch. You shouldn't go into a valuation to pitch your business. You should go into the valuation to consult and give the right advice to help the client on their moving process. And if you do that well enough, you should be given the business afterwards. And if you don't do that part well enough, then you potentially won't, or the client wasn't the right fit for you. That's what I believe in a daisy chain world that we should operate in, basically. So,
and you're right. If you're not comfortable doing that, the nice thing is, Ian, Mark, there are so many people out there who are doing podcasts and training on this, of how you think this way. It's such a mindset thing. It's like getting the right fee. I'm amazed people walk away with 2.5%. I'm like, how that, again, witchcraft. Or 2% or 1.5%, whatever the number is, the fee you walk away is a mindset thing. And the relationship you establish with someone is a mindset thing. If you just have a transactional mindset, you'll get a low fee, high volume, and you'll probably work yourself into the grave for very little reward. And the same client with the right relationship, the right consultation, would be happy to invest more in the sale of their most expensive asset if they knew, liked, and trusted what you're saying. And in an industry of beige, be the colourful spot, be the difference. And it's not about gold plating. It's about bronze plating, potentially. You just need to be better than the rest, rather than, hey, you can be gold plated, fantastic. But that's not what people need. They just need to be different and better.
Yeah. I believe the bar in our industry is fairly low, which then means that you are able to be different. Can I, just before we go, Ian talked before about creating marketing plans in November. You talked about PR, email, social, and direct mail as those 4 elements. If people aren't doing all 4, and they might be sat here as one of those agents you mentioned before, trying to do everything but struggling for time, would it be better for them to come up with a process of maybe look at doing, if they're doing 1, doing 2 initially and then build up? What advice can you give to somebody who says, I've not got time to do all of those 4?
Now I go with 3 bits of advice. First bit of advice is, I'm actually running a course in November on the 14th called The Map. Technically, it's only for people who've been to 30 years of marketing in one day. So that's gone out to most day, and it's a limited number because it's a webinar, so it's anonymous. Anyone can attend. Your map is your marketing action plan. And what you'll walk away with at the end of the 14th of November, 3 hours on a webinar, is an 18-month plan for the year. So that's kind of my sales pitch. I've just sold. Damn it. After 52 years, I finally sold something, I hope. The second one, you're absolutely right. start with you don't have to boil the ocean. I would say if there's 12 kind of things, let's make it simpler. 6 kind of things you know you need to be doing that you're not. Diarize them over the year and spend 2 months on each and focus until that becomes a new habit, what we call unconscious competence. So we go from unconscious incompetence, as in we don't know that we don't know it, to conscious incompetence, we realize that we don't know it, to conscious competence, we know that we know how to do it, but we need to think about it, to where the experts live, unconscious competence. And if you spent 2 months working on 3-4 direct mail campaigns, at the end of that period, you would know how to do direct mail campaigns. Similarly with social media, similarly with email, similarly with PR. All those things you can do if you spend a couple of months just going, apart from everything else I do, I'm just going to make time, 1 or 2 hours a week, to work on that thing. 3 months or 2 months, whatever you want to do. So 8 to 12 weeks, do that one extra thing, and you'll have learned it as a new habit. We are what we do repeatedly. That's what a habit is. My final bit of advice of the 3 I was going to give is our time is our most expensive asset when it comes to our lives, really. And if you times 35 hours times 48, hey, wouldn't we all like to work for 35 hours? But let's say a normal working week, 35 hours, assume 4 weeks holiday, we all have exactly the same 1,680 hours per year to produce revenue. We all have a desired income. So divide your desired income, 50,000, 30,000, 100,000, a million, by 1,680, and that will give you your hourly rate. If you can find someone who will do it better and cheaper than your hourly rate, use them. Because if you're doing it more expensively and less good, you're damaging your chance of reaching your annual income. So every hour you work, you should be going, let's say, £50 an hour, whatever that gets you into the end, 75k, give or take. If you're doing it for £50 and you haven't generated £50 in that hour, you're not hitting £75,000. You will find people on Fiverr, in VAs, in agencies, elsewhere, they'll do it for £10. They'll be better and they'll be quicker, and you can focus on earning £50 an hour. People don't value their time. And some people write copy for a living. Some people do social media for a living. Some people do direct. Go to the expert. And if they're more expensive than you, it's better to do it yourself. Learn how to do it yourself. And also, I'd also say, learn how to do it yourself and then instruct someone else to do it. You're less likely to be misled. And also, for whatever reason, if you want to do more or understand, doing it yourself means you can ask questions that are informed. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of 3 bits. Is people don't value their time, and it drives me insane. And you'll see good people go down because they try to do everything themselves. And hey, I couldn't sell a house to save my life. I can help market people who are selling their house, who sell houses, but I can't sell a house. So I recognize my limitations.
And I think that's a great way to summarize what people should be thinking about with time and with the energy and with the practicality of operating with all these different deliveries, is just to make sure that you get people outsourcing, doing it, that are better than you. I think there's so much. I've got an ego, and I remember a couple of years ago when I was kind of saying, well, yeah, but I haven't got time to do this, this and this. And someone said, well, get someone else to do it. And I said, well, yeah, but then their standard is not as good as mine. And they said, no, probably it's better. And I was like, you're probably right, actually, because that's what they do for a living. I can't spell for toffee anyway. So sometimes just remember, everyone, there's a level to this game. There's someone better out there. Get them to do it. Get the best doing it, and buy back your time.
100%. And the rule is, the job titles before the whole CEO thing arrived in the UK from America when we all became CEOs is assistants assist, executives execute, managers manage, and directors direct. Be a director. Conduct the orchestra. Don't play every instrument. It's tempting to go, I will play every instrument, but if you're not good at them, there'll be someone who's cheaper and better than you who can do it. And also, the art of leadership is delegation. They may not do it better than you. They could do it differently to you, but it will be as good. It'd just be different. So So focus on getting final tip from me is write down everything you do in your job. Highlight all the things you hate. That is the job description of the next person you hire. Because if they go for a job that is basically built on everything you hate and they love it, you've just made your job better and they're very happy. So keep doing that, and the next person you hire is the one that the jobs you both hate. That's the job description of the next person. Recruit to the gaps. Recruit to the things you hate.
That's why Mike's got an Ian and Ian's got a Mike in our business. Love it, Simon. There's some absolute golden tips there. I don't often write a lot of notes in these podcasts, if I'm honest with you, but I've got a whole page of notes here. So things that, I want to share with people. We will look forward to seeing people's questions. Mark's got the same. You've got a train to catch, so you need to fly. But we'll obviously tag all of your details in the comments for the podcast so that people can get in contact, and really appreciate your time. And gents, we all don't feel great, but we managed to get through the podcast. So well done to us as well for getting through without any coughing fits and sneezing fits.
Real pleasure. Really nice to talk to you both. Take care.
Thanks, Simon. A massive thank you once again to Simon Leadbetter from Unchained for joining us. We mentioned on the intro, a man of vast experience marketing-wise, and not just in an agency, but very relatable to agency. And so many takeaways. As you said, as we were finishing, I've got a full page of notes, and I do quite like writing notes throughout these podcasts, but it's very rare that I've written quite as many. Even that I was writing down the margin as well to try and get some more bits in there with stuff he was saying at the end. But loads and loads of value, some high, some really personal, practical stuff right at the end there as well that I liked.
Yeah. I've been following a guy called Dan Martell. He's got a book out called Buy Back Your Time. And funnily enough, what Simon was talking about, a time at the end of it, it's been a lot of the stuff that I've been learning about at the moment with regards to how to look at the job spec, the things that you do in a week that light you up and giving them a green, and the things that you do in a week that drain you a little bit and giving them a red. And then kind of reviewing, I just did exactly what he did with the hours and the money and what you're worth on a daily, to see what can be outsourced, see what can be delegated. So it's really strange that in the last 2 weeks, I've kind of been following that exact journey. So there's a lot of value in that. I love the bit that he said around kind of, for people, remember it's socials when you're talking marketing, remember it's socials. And if your Facebook page or your Instagram just is you, just visualize that chat at a bar when you're just spitballing someone, almost selling them yourself and not letting them have a word in and not offering them any value and being greedy with your airtime. Just review your own social media page and have a look at it honestly, and that's a really, really valuable tip, because social media is no longer just spit loads out there and some will stick. It isn't that anymore. You have to do it with strategy and quality, and you have to do it right, for it to really work and build your brand in the way you want it to. So yeah, some great takeaways for me there. Any other bits you've got on your notes?
Yeah, I like you thought that was there's a lot of things in there that were very powerful, little one-liners that you can remember to really, really make a difference. And I actually, funny you talk about the buying back your time, and that I was having a conversation with a team member here, and I was saying, well, just give it to me. And she said to me, well, no, the whole point is that you can't do everything. So I'm going through that exact process at the moment of trying to be a better delegator. So that really resonated with me as well. And the bit that I thought would probably be really useful for some of our listeners is the bit about brand, and obviously personal brand, company brand, but actually acknowledging that within all of this, you need to have a brand, whether you're an employee, a self-employed agent, part of a bigger corporation. And actually the really practical advice from, if you're not ready to create content, just curate it and then start to build your confidence with that. I thought that was really a very effective way for people to be able to start just doing it. You don't have to put your face on camera. You don't have to even, be really controversial or anything with it. You can just regurgitate some of the existing content that is out there and just put your little spin on it, even just a couple of lines, and ask for engagement on it, basically. So I thought that was a really effective way on it. And then, of course, the ROI, how many agents talk about ROI and CAC and know those numbers. And I think, as he was saying some of that, I was thinking, as an agent, it's really easy to make an excuse as to why we might not know our ROI. Well, they'll see these various different places, or to not know the acquisition because they'll have been thinking about using your services for years and years, maybe. But actually, Simon broke that down in a really easy way, because it doesn't really matter if your measurement might be a little bit inaccurate. If you're consistent with the measurement, then you will be able to track it. And that's the key. It's not, you don't have to, I think, know your customer acquisition cost down to the penny, but you have to know which direction it's going in. And I think that was, some really good practical advice. That was one of the things that I wrote down that I'll be having a conversation with as we continue our business planning through November and December for next year.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I spend quite a lot of time with people in marketing outside of agency, and I actually was out for dinner, not just on my own, but in a group with the guy that does Alex Hormozzi's YouTube ads. And so, this guy's spending like $5 million a day on YouTube advertising for his clients. So, yeah. So you get to see some metrics, but they're obsessed with CPA. They're obsessed with cost per acquisition. Everyone in the digital marketing space are just obsessed with what's the CPA, what's the CPA? Because when you're spending that amount of money, little tweaks and little changes, makes a huge difference. It's why some of these YouTubers are split testing thumbnail images 500 times in a day to see what's changing, and it's crazy the level we go to. But that ROI, or understanding how much it costs you to get a listing, how much it costs you to get a take on, is really, really important as a metric to kind of just review at the end of the year. If you can do it quarterly, great, but at least do it at the end of the year so you've got a bit of a measure. The little golden nugget for like valuers and negotiators and people that are in the living rooms that are listening, though, that I took was the seller is the seller, but the buyer is the customer. And if the seller's biting back on how you're planning to do some marketing or how you're planning to write up the listing, to just remind the vendor, you're not the customer. The buyer is the customer. So the advice is driven from what we believe the buyer will want to see, not necessarily what you want to see. That is powerful. I've not heard that before. And actually, if I'm in the living room and I'm saying, no, I think we should only have these 12 key photos because I don't want to destroy everything. I want to leave a little bit to the imagination. And I don't think those extra 5 images of the upstairs bedroom and the downstairs cloakroom or whatever it may be will work. To be able to push back and say, look, I'm doing this through the eyes of the buyer, who is the customer. Yes, you are my client, you're my seller, but let's look through the eyes of the buyer, not what you believe is the right thing. And they're the people that I'm talking to on a daily basis. So you've got to trust me on it. That's a real tangible piece of power that you can take into a living room as an estate agent. I thought that was great.
Yeah. And I'm going to use that actually when we had a client a few weeks ago who wanted to use one of their own pictures. And it was not good. And the team I saw it. I wasn't involved in the conversation. I saw it online. I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? And the pushback was the client wanted to use it. So actually having that little framework in our armory will help avoid that sort of situation going forward, because that, when you've got somebody who is very firm on those points, it's that fine line between giving advice and pushing really hard against their opinion. But actually that little sort of sentence there, that actually, the buyer is the customer here, the buyer is who we're doing this for, that is a very good way of saying, no, I don't agree with you, basically, for something like that.
But with a level of authority and reason, without just sounding like a bit of a dick.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not my opinion, it's the buyer's opinion that matters.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they're saying, because I'm talking to multiple buyers on a weekly basis. Yeah, love the podcast. I knew I would with Simon, because he's just got a really great way of explaining things at a high level with some complex kind of strategy and terminology, but you get it. You get what he's saying, and obviously super knowledgeable, and yeah, definitely something that I think people will have got their own versions of takeaways from this as well. And we'll be back next week, hopefully feeling a little bit better and a bit more chirpy, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel more energized now than I did when I came on the podcast. So that's a good start. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on social, share it with colleagues, reach out to either Simon, myself, or Ian. I'm Mark Worrell. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next week.